Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of 360 Anything Goes, episode 8. Thank you for tuning in this week. And on this episode of Anything Goes, I'm going to be talking about Chucky, the series. And it's a show I started watching the first 2 seasons of it, and the reason I'm talking about it this week on Anything Goes is because this week, and spoiler alert, I'll ruin kayfabe, but at the time of this recording of Anything Goes, tomorrow is the season premiere of the 3rd season of Chucky the series, which is both on USA and Sci-Fi. Unfortunately, it's on Wednesday nights now, so I have to DVR it using my Sling DVR since it is on when AEW Dynamite is on, and of course, wrestling comes first always. But first, just a reminder, last week's episode was all about the Three Stooges, talking about Shemp-Howard, since that was the last episode of Shemp-Timber. And if you haven't heard that episode yet, maybe you can go check it out and give it a listen right here on Spreaker or wherever else you listen to 360 Wrestling Podcasts at. I would appreciate it if you did go check it out. And I do plan on talking more Three Stooges in the future, right here on 360 Anything Goes. But this week I am talking Chucky the series, and the reason I got into this show is because, of course, watching Raw and NXT on USA, I saw the commercials, and I didn't really think too much of it. But then I think when I was watching NXT, I just left it on USA. It was probably NXT, might have been the first episode of it. Because I want to say when it first started, the first season was Tuesday nights at 10. And so I watched NXT, and then when it was over, I just left it on USA. And because I wouldn't say I'm really a big Chucky fan. I have seen some of the movies. The first Child's Play. I don't think I have seen the second one. And I don't even know. Is there Child's Play 3? I'm not sure. That shows how big of a fan of the movies I am. And then I have seen some of the Bride of Chucky, and then some of the other newer movies, Seed of Chucky, and then there's even one called Cult of Chucky. So like I said, not really the biggest Chucky fan in the whole world, but I did start to get into the show as I started watching it, and I got hooked pretty much on the first episode. Before I continue, though, I forgot there is a podcast I want to mention called Chucky Vision. They recap each episode. I listened to them last season, and really good podcast. So hopefully they will return for season 3 of Chucky. And they are definitely a better podcast than this one to listen to if you want to get caught up on the last 2 seasons. It's called Chucky Vision. You can probably search for it anywhere you listen to your podcasts, and I'm sure you can probably find it. So as I was saying about all the Chucky Child's Play movies, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan, but I did watch some of them, and for some reason there's just something about this series that kind of got my attention more than the movies. I'm not sure why, but I really got interested in it, and I had to watch each week because I pretty much got hooked. And it's created by the original creator, Don Mancini, who created the Child's Play film franchise. And actually, what I'm reading here on Wikipedia is that this is more of a kind of like a sequel to the Cult of Chucky, which was the last movie. And I actually have seen that one, and I didn't think that one was too bad. And then also had the original voice of Chucky as well. And Jennifer Tilly, who played Tiffany, and also herself. Excuse me. Also had Jennifer Tilly's sister. I apologize. I don't remember her name right now, but I understand that she is also an actress. I can't think of her name right now, but she was in a couple episodes of the last season. And on the series, the main character, Jake Wheeler, played by Zachary Arthur. And I like Jake. I think he works pretty well. Kinda, I guess you could say, playing the role of Andy, who, speaking of Andy, has appeared on the series as well. And I think Jake is a good character. He bought Chucky at a yard sale, and Chucky killed his father, who was not a very nice man. And there's this girl, Lexi, who kind of is a bully, kind of mean to Jake. And Chucky at first is trying to convince Jake to kill her. And he doesn't listen to Chucky. And he ends up working with Lexi and his friend Devin, who ends up being his boyfriend. At first, they're just kind of friends. Devin, I believe, has a podcast. But then they end up getting into a relationship together. And that was probably more season 2, I would say. And speaking of Devin Evans, his mom was killed. And here on the Wikipedia page, they call it a true crime podcast that he hosts. And talks about Charles Lee Ray, who, of course, is Chucky. And I apologize, but I'd probably have a very hard time trying to pronounce his real name. So I doubt that he's listening to the podcast right now, but just in case if he is, I apologize. Big fan of your character on the show, though. And Lexi, her mom was it the mayor, I believe? And she ended up last season, actually, on the Christmas episode, getting sawed in half by Chucky with a chainsaw. That may have been maybe the most violent and graphic scene in all of the seasons, all of the episodes of the show. I could be wrong, but that was probably one of the most violent and graphic things I think maybe I've ever seen. So Lexi, like I said, played by Olivia, is it? Lind? Sorry if I said that wrong. She plays Lexi Cross. She goes to school with Jake. And like I said, at first she's real mean to him. But then eventually they do end up becoming friends. The three of them, Lexi, Jake, and Dylan. And also in the first season, only Junior Wheeler is Jake's cousin, and he's actually Lexi's boyfriend. And he kind of ends up working with Chucky. They kill his dad, and then he's killed. And like I said, the voice of Chucky, I should say, original Brad Dourif, is it? Sorry if I'm saying some of the names wrong. And got some of the characters here in Hackensack, New Jersey. The mayor and Jake's aunt is a character. Lexi's mom, Mayor Michelle Cross. And Lexi's father, who's killed. And Caroline Cross, who is the younger sister of Lexi and ends up becoming friends with Chucky. And even in this episode, the first season, I should say, we see a young Charles Lee Ray when he was 7 with his psychologist, who we see in the second season of the show. And Devon Sawa was in Chucky, and apparently, maybe I just didn't notice, but they say he actually played Jake's dad in one episode. And he was killed, like I said. And then he came back in the second episode and played Father Bryce at the Catholic school that the kids were sent to. And at first, I didn't recognize him. I know he was in the old Casper movie, which I have seen, but it's been quite a long time since I have seen it. Also, he was in that movie Final Destination. I never seen it. And I'm sure he was probably in some other things as well. And he did a really good job playing Father Bryce in the season. And he will not be returning for season 3 because he was killed last season. Chucky got inside of him when they were performing an exorcism. I think that's what it's called. I think I said it right. They were doing that thing, and he got inside of him and made him explode in the church. The blood, the guts went everywhere, all over everybody. His head went flying up in the air. Pretty gruesome. That one was pretty gruesome too. So maybe it's a tie for maybe the most violent and graphic death scene. Right up there with Lexi's mom, I would probably say. Also, the second season, we saw good Chucky, which was a good side of Chucky. Maybe the innocence and the kindness from when he was a kid before he turned evil. But unfortunately, that did not last too long. And that brings me to a character that was introduced in season 2 at the Catholic school when the kids were sent there. Her name was Nadine, and she was Lexi's roommate. She ended up becoming friends with Lexi, as well as Jake and Devin, and she got real close to good Chucky, and then ended up where the evil Chucky came out, pushed her out of the window, and she killed, falling into the arms of a statue outside of the school. And I was a little disappointed by that because I actually liked the character of Nadine, I thought, because she was a really nice person and she was really nice to Lexi, and I thought the thing between her and good Chucky was pretty entertaining. Also, Nina Pierce, she's in a wheelchair, and I believe, I could be wrong, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about all the Chucky movies, but there was one probably in the middle, I would say, Curse of Chucky. I think she might have been introduced in that one. And then she was in Cult of Chucky. She is in a wheelchair, and then Chucky ended up getting in her body. And then Gentili, who has Tiffany, the bride of Chucky, in her, ended up capturing her, and she can't move when she's herself, but when Chucky takes over, she can get up and walk around and everything. So to keep her there, Tiffany ended up cutting off her arms and her legs. And pretty wild. But the character I do like, Nina, not too bad. And like I just mentioned, Jennifer Tilly playing Tiffany Valentine, who is in the body of Jennifer Tilly, who also plays herself. And we even have Kyle, who's Andy's foster sister. And of course, Andy Barkley was returned last season, which I thought, as they grew the character up, had him as an adult. I thought that was done very well. I thought that Andy and Kyle too, they were good characters on the show, even though they're not really the main characters. They're not in the whole season or anything, but I thought they did a good job as their characters, just of course grown up. And we have Dr. Amanda Mixter, who was Chucky's therapist when he was younger. She makes an appearance, and then she ended up, or Chucky ended up getting in her body, so she's dead. And she escaped with Chucky. Very good. I think she played that good therapist character well, and she even with good Chucky, she talked about how he was some of the goodness that was still left in him, but she wanted to bring out more of Chucky's evil side. And that is about where the last season left off. Oh, also, Glenn and Glenda from The Seed of Chucky, they appeared in the second season. And also, to talk about some wrestling real quick, kinda. Last season, they had because there was one Chucky episode that actually didn't even have Chucky in it. And it was more about Tiffany and her sister and some other people she had there. So it was mainly about her. And then it was supposed to be like one of those talk shows that recapped the episode of Chucky, which featured WWE superstar Liv Morgan, who ended up getting stabbed a bunch of times by Chucky. And very good show. I definitely recommend the first 2 seasons of Chucky the series are streaming on Peacock right now. So maybe before you start watching the 3rd season, you can go on Peacock and watch the first 2 seasons to get caught up. I definitely recommend it. Like I said, I just kind of by accident watched the first show because I left it on USA after NXT, and I ended up getting hooked on it. So I'm sure if you start watching it, there's a good chance you could too. And that's all for this episode. Episode 9 of 360 Anything Goes. Thank you everyone for listening. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, and you can leave all Chucky comments. Let me know if you have been watching the series, the last 2 seasons. Let me know if you're a fan of all the Chucky, the Child's Play movies. Let me know what is your favorite Chucky movie. Who's your favorite Chucky character? And also let me know if you'll be watching season 3 of Chucky, the series. Like I said earlier, kinda spoiling, ruining kayfabe here, but I'm recording this on Tuesday night. The season premiere of season 3 is tomorrow on Wednesday, but this episode of the podcast, Anything Goes, will be airing this Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern. So that's why, if you notice that this is actually airing a day after the season premiere. But hopefully everyone will watch it's on both USA and Sci-Fi. And that's all for this week. Hopefully we'll be back for episode 10 of Anything Goes next week. Not sure yet what I will be talking about on that episode. I'll have to think about it during the week. Remember to listen to 360 Good Morning Wrestling Fans, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Had a big weekend last weekend. I did 2 live shows talking about NXT No Mercy and AEW Wrestle Dream. And this Saturday, hope to having a live episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic Saturday night, talking all about WWE Fastlane. So hope everyone will tune in for that. And thank you listening to this episode of 360 Anything Goes. Hope you'll be back next week too. But until then, see you later, alligator.